Fiona Rae makes abstract paintings. Her works are instantly recognizable, rich, lush and borderline kitsch. It usually has psychedelic colors balanced with pure strong hues. It has a variety of painterly motifs, drips, daubed and scumbled paint marks, curvilinear multicolored strokes, and even flat graphic symbols or figures. While the motifs look random, they are painted with extreme precision, cool sophistication and strong consideration for dynamic equilibrium and multiplicity. Her works usually use an all-over format. The motifs, gestural marks, text and paint drips are distributed to fill up nearly every part of the canvas. A few negative spaces can be seen between these strokes and graphic elements to create dense compositions, leaving viewers to pick out areas of focus, a familiar cartoon motif, a dominant black line that allows the eye to navigate across the canvas, a familiar stroke that reminds one of another artist. Colors are used to unify the disparate elements together, creating an exhilarating yet elusive visual spectacle, worthy to join the ranks of renowned paintings in history. Fiona's works began as rows of miniature pictures, combinations of colors, forms and strokes against a neutral ground. Each image appears like a pictograph, an unknown letter or symbol. What's important is not the meaning of each symbol, but the way the various strokes, textures, color and materiality of paint interact with each other to create an interesting visual, forming the foundation of Fiona's search for a unique visual language. As her works evolved, her pictographs started to cover single canvases, where she further investigated how to create interesting visuals that balance purposeful concepts and unpredictable painterly expressions. Then, her works became more condensed with clear graphic motifs, depicting a world of interdependencies fractured by cubism, with all the hustle and energy of a metropolis, seen through the lens of movie and televisual culture. In the 2000s, her paintings began to reference a world keyed to the computer screen. Fonts, signs and symbols drawn from contemporary design and typography appeared, echoing new visual conventions of a post-Photoshop generation. Fiona paints to design a new visual language in relation to the globalized world of intersections, be it between cultures, high and low visuals and technology and tradition. Living in a visually accessible world mediated by arrays of galleries, books, the internet and social media, Fiona responds by creating amalgamations of paintings inspired by this buffet of visual inspiration: Picasso, Matisse, Dubuffet, Richter, Kandinsky, Hoffman, Guston, Picabia, Tintin, 1920s graphic design and many more. Fiona also paints as she strongly believed in the relevance of painting, in a postmodern world that celebrated conceptual art. She was the only painter in the Frieze exhibition, where young British artists like Damien Hirst exhibited conceptual artworks. Ultimately, Fiona wants her painting to be a record of her series of thought and feeling processes. Her strokes translate her own feelings into strokes on canvas. She declares that they are a sincere attempt to make sense of the world and the joy and despair at being alive. The role of painting in art has always been a challenging one. Photography replaced its role of representing reality. Dada-framed painting is an old, outdated and irrelevant bourgeois activity. Art markets and rich collectors nullify painting's noble pursuit of challenging established social and aesthetic order. Malevich had pushed abstraction to the extreme edge, and Pollock's performative technique with paint has transformed the relationship between painting and representation. Fiona Rae understood the long history of painting, yet found her own way of continuing and expanding abstract art into the 21st century. Modernist abstract painters attempted to create a universal language or spiritual resonance. Abstract expressionists wanted to respond to the anxiety towards human subconsciousness, and find a style that epitomized and expressed the artist's authentic identity. Fiona explores the role of painting, in a world that celebrates conceptual art, and investigates the infinite possibilities of painting to develop new visual language, in a globalized technological world, submerged in visual and material cultures. Fiona's works derive from many influences. There were many abstract painters that inspired her, especially the abstract expressionists who placed importance on the gesture as captured in paint, from the wild splashing movements, to the drips and the dribbles of paint, as its proponents sought to express themselves through the act of painting and its ambiguous pictorial depth. Her Hong Kong background also exposed her to Chinese calligraphy, which influenced her spontaneity in brushwork, and the use of calligraphic curvilinear black strokes, reminding one of the Shea style. Pop culture influenced her to appropriate the everyday, and to mix high art and low art in her images, as seen in the addition of these pandas which derived from random toys found in New York's Chinatown. This also contributed to her uniquely ambiguous yet poetic painting titles, some of which were direct translations from Chinese headings that she encountered. Finally, is influenced by Jenny Holzer and Barbara Kruger, both of whom use the language of advertising to make it subversive and surprising. Fiona used the language of abstract art to do the same. Fiona begins with a vague roadmap in mind, but improvises along the way as she responds to the strokes, colors and textures on the canvas. Sometimes, she uses Photoshop to do color testing, before embarking on her artworks. She then starts applying a flat color of acrylic paint on the canvas. This creates an even, non-absorbent surface to allow her to paint oil on it in a smooth and rich manner. Following which, she begins her painting, usually with oil as it is a malleable and forgivable substance. She controls the range of pressure, techniques and size of brushes as she leaves gestural, fine and even circumlocutory trails of motion that pulsate through the painting. The life-size canvas allows for bigger movements of the whole body while painting. At various junctures, Fiona takes a step back to observe her creation, and responds to it with another mark or overlaying it with a stroke, until the canvas looks complete. She might even add drip effects using shell-sol and oil to create fluid paint, allowing gravity to do the work as she turns the canvas a few times to create different directional lines.